Hello and welcome again to another episode of TBD with Coach Kraushaar, brought to you by Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning in Muscatine, Iowa. It's another episode where we interview people from around our community who are involved in school-related activities, whether it be athletics, theater, as well as maybe people who've graduated from our local schools and have gone on and are doing some things professionally that are interesting. And so I'm your host, Joel Kraushaar. I am the color commentator for Muscatine Muskie Athletics. I also do some volunteering with our local music departments as well. And I'm a former high school football coach and a former college football coach, and have some experience in a lot of different things as a music major too. So we're going to cover a lot of some of my interests and have guests who kind of can give us some information on the arts and athletics in our community. And a huge thank you to our sponsor, Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning in Muscatine, Iowa. They're also your leader in the area for outdoor living. I was talking to Robbie and Wendy actually last week, and I'm finally getting on board to the pellet grill universe, and I'm getting a Green Mountain grill from Chamberlain, and I cannot wait to start cooking meals and smoking meals for my family on the Green Mountain Grill. They're your leader here in the area for your Big Green Egg grills, as well as Green Mountain Grill pellet grills. They also have a full line of Weber grills, and they also can build you a custom outdoor kitchen. My wife and I use Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning actually as our HVAC provider. A few months ago, we had an issue in our home where we thought we had some condensation coming from our HVAC system. They sent some techs over right away. And instead of cutting into my drywall, they were able to diagnose that it wasn't a condensation issue in the HVAC. And they got a plumber over to my house right away. And they were able to fix the plumbing issue. We had a small leak. And thankfully, their expertise prevented me from adding an extra hole in my wall. We were able to repair that. So I trust Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning with all of my HVAC needs, and they also are my go-to for outdoor living. And I'm a huge smoker and griller my first year, and I cannot wait to replace it with my Green Mountain Grill. And moving forward on episodes, we'll actually be showing you some of the meals that I'm making on that. There's a lot of recipes to actually cook a little bit healthier, which is what I'm trying to do as I continue to slim down from my defensive line playing weight to try and get a little bit more lean, more fit, to maybe find my way back to a community theater stage. And that's going to bring me into my first guest and my only guest today, someone who I've had the opportunity to work with on several occasions at Muscatine High School, the drama director at Muscatine High School, Mrs. Rene Mauck. Rene, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you.
It's
Hi, it's great
it's
to be
great.
here.
It's crazy that we have to do this over the internet. You know, we're so used to sitting in the same room and having good conversations with one another. I've had the pleasure to
Yeah.
coach with your husband at the middle school football level, and I've also had the opportunity to coach with you with our high school musicals here in Muscatine. And we'll just go right into that. Unfortunately, this COVID-19 pandemic wiped out the spring theater season, which is when MHS does their musical, and you were expecting to do Into the Woods this year.
Right. Yes. Into the Woods, a great Sondheim musical, had a great cast. And actually, we'd already been working on the show since January, and you'd already been there to help. Um, so it was pretty disappointing. And our first reaction was to just postpone it. We really hoped that we might be able to do it in June. And maybe we'd get back to school by May, but that didn't happen. And even if we'd have gotten back to school, it would have been so modified. I'm not sure we would have been able to have rehearsals and things like that. So, and we're not alone. Thousands of schools across the country had to cancel their spring musical. So very, very unfortunate.
And it's not just a challenge from a education standpoint because it is such a learning experience for the young actors and students. It's a great activity for
Mhm.
them, but it's also a large fundraiser for a theater department.
Yeah, it's it is the fundraiser in our situation. And I think this is true with a lot of high schools in particular. This is how you raise your money for your entire season. So we do a fall play in November, but the fall play is usually a loss leader or a break even at best. You depend on the musical to raise a big budget to take you through your whole year. The good news for Muscatine this year was we had not already spent a lot of the extra set, costume money. We had only spent a portion of the budget that didn't get recouped. So that's the good news. But you know, for a lot of schools, I think this might be actually really very devastating.
I have a collegiate friend who's a drama teacher in Nebraska, and they were set to open their musical the week before this all, or a week after all this all went down, and so they were in final dress rehearsals, and he was saying that
Yeah.
thankfully the community who bought tickets, they donated their ticket money, so they didn't have to refund tickets back if they had a very small percentage that they had to refund back. So they were able to
Yeah.
not take as big of a loss. But yeah, it's such a major thing, and it's one of those maybe hidden costs that a community might not understand when you look at putting on a
Right.
production like a musical. So when you
Yeah,
think
I
about
think,
your musical, so this year, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think a lot of people don't realize that that is how it works, that drama, the drama activity is a self-funded activity. So we sell tickets. Those ticket sales are what we use to rent costumes, pay for the rights and the materials, build sets, run an entire theater program. It includes drama club and all the other things I do with the students. That it's all self-funded. So losing your musical is, a big chunk of your budget.
It's also such a big part of, I know why you do what you do. You celebrated a birthday not too long ago, and your husband very eloquently put on social media about how for as long as you guys have been together, this is one of those things that just makes you tick. It's not just for whether it's performing, picking out a show, directing. I mean, it's a huge part of what fuels you as an educator, and to kind of have that taken out,
Right.
that's got to be a little bit tough.
It is tough. And I don't even think I was recognizing that I was kind of feeling depressed and down. And I wasn't even noticing it as much. He was noticing it. Um, that it's like having a child in a way, I would describe it, because you start, with this idea, a script, and then you cast it and you build sets and you dream this design of it. And then there's the working with the kids, which for me is this is the big part for me that matters. I love the working with the kids, the acting, just the developing them and watching them grow on stage, and to the final moment when they're in front of an audience. It's like, you've produced this thing, you cherish it like a child in a way. So yeah, I don't think I realized until he posted that almost that, oh yeah, I'm like really depressed about this, aren't I? This was like a loss to me. So, and I'm sure the students are feeling it too.
Yeah, I saw a couple of the students that I had been working with. One of them works at one of our local grocery stores, and I ran into him probably a couple weeks ago. I think, yeah, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he just was saying, we'd only worked together, I think, 2 times, but he was just saying, I was just starting to figure it out, and then we had to stop rehearsal. So it was just to see those light bulbs start to go off for these kids. I'm not sure that until you've really
Yeah.
worked through the rehearsal process that's really the fun part is
Mhm.
breaking through maybe some preconceived notions of a character, and as much fun as the performances are to watch, you get that front row seats to from start to finish how these youngsters develop.
Yeah, that growth. And that was another thing that I realized then that was upsetting to me, because when I look at these seasons and the growth of these kids. I watch this through the 4 years that I work with them. And so not doing this musical, it's not, to me, even the idea that, oh, this is how we fund our program and we lost some money, that kind of is a back burner to me. A bigger thing for me is I didn't get to finish the product with that group of kids. I didn't get to see that growth. And there's those freshmen, sophomores, those underclassmen who are going to develop through that so much. They grow in the musical. And now we didn't get to get all of that. That's truncated. It makes it, it's a loss from their growth as a performer. It's a loss for me of knowing where to go next with next season because we didn't finish that growth. And that's a frustration for me.
Well, let's talk about something maybe a little bit more positive, and that is, so you were going to do Into the Woods this year, which is a wonderful Stephen Sondheim musical. In past years, you've done things like Addams Family, Catch Me If You Can. You did most recently. You did Matilda. You know, so
Matilda.
how do you pick a show? Yeah, how do you pick a show?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's one of the things I watch those kids come through by the end of the musical, that group that's been involved in that and has a lot of growth. That's a lot of helping me see where should I look to go? What kind of show am I looking at? What's my core group of students? Because there's going to be new kids that are going to come along. You're going to have new freshmen coming along. You're going to have kids who you had auditioned for Into the Woods, but they didn't maybe make Into the Woods, but they're coming back. So I have them to look in, add into that piece. So I'm looking at that pool of students that I have. What shows are suitable to their talents and what shows are going to take them to a next place to help them grow as performers? That's a big part of how I pick a show. Who are those kids? What are their special gifts? Not just as individuals, but as a group, as a core. And so what show makes sense to help them go to the next level? What show is going to push them? And then, of course, I have to put on the backside of that has to be what's realistic from a production standpoint. What can we realistically do a great job of producing just from technically, and what's the audience going to want to come and see? And from the shows you just named, you can see that I have a knack for wanting to pick sort of what's going to be out there next in a way that maybe hasn't been done a ton. Now, Into the Woods was a show that is an anomaly to that because that's a very popular show, but we just had the right kids for that. But I do like to be more edgy with it. I think we were the first theater anywhere around us that did Catch Me If You Can or did Addams Family. We were the first high school to do Matilda last year. Like I was just on those rights, really, fortunately. So I'm looking for something that's new for the audience as well.
And it's not just high school and others. Collegiate theater that was impacted by COVID-19. I mean, we're seeing a total shutdown of Broadway in New York. And I know the West End in London is shut down too. And I mean, and it's catastrophic. There are some theaters and there are some shows that have already said that they're not going to reopen in the foreseeable future. Even Disney is shutting Frozen musical down. I mean, so there is so much affected in this world. And I'm not sure that we're also focused on what we're doing in the economy that is the immediate economy, where people paying rent, paying mortgages, but there are thousands of performers who are out of work, and some of them your former students who are on Broadway now, and in touring companies that are there. I'm sure you've talked to some of them. I mean, that they're essentially out of a job until we can start to commune again in the theater.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's all on hold. And I think it was a collective just, oh no, when it was announced that Broadway was going to even extend the shutdown all the way into September, you lose your entire summer, of millions of tourists coming and seeing these shows. So you lose all of that momentum. And it is upsetting. There is several theaters that are teetering now. And several Broadway shows that just didn't open. They just canceled it. Now Frozen shutting down, the first major musical to have to shut its doors over this. And Disney's response I read was, we've already got 3 shows on Broadway. We had to decide what we were going to do. One of them was just going to have to go for us to make it through. And if Disney has to say that, you know that this is problematic. And yeah, these students are sitting, though, you know, the couple that I have involved in productions right now are just they're just waiting to see what's going to happen, because it's not even just they're not performing and they're not getting those paychecks, but there's not jobs for them to really do either. I mean, obviously they can go work at, you know, a grocery store, whatever, that kind of a job. But as far as their performing jobs, you know, they're trying to find things and ways to keep taking classes and to keep sharp while they're just waiting to see when things will open. And live theater is a bizarre thing, like the sports. It's the same question I think that's probably happening with football and any sport. You can't, you know, they can't get on stage in masks. They have to be close together. We have to be able to sing and talk. And so how do you, it's not even just a question of how you manage having an audience there. It's how do we safely, you know, at what point are we going to be safe to be on stage around each other performing? So
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I
very
can think of,
interesting.
yeah, you go back, I can look back at my performing career and how many times was I singing, you know, 6 to 8 inches, you know, into looking lovingly into the eyes of a person, you know, singing a duet. I mean,
Exactly.
there's no way to keep the
Yeah.
social distance and sing a song, a ballad from Carousel. You just can't do it. It's just
Right.
it's such a unique problem.
Exactly.
And
Or
the
play a
well,
scene in a play. Yeah.
right, you can't argue as a juror in 12 Angry Men and not get in the face of someone
Right.
at some point in that show. I mean, it's just not possible.
Yeah, it's not possible. It's not possible
And
to not accidentally spit on one of your scene partners, you know?
yeah, yeah, I mean, someone should probably could write a book about acting and just call it "The Times I Was Spat On." Like it's just a hazard of
Right.
the job.
Exactly.
The what
So,
you were mentioning some of the former students and other people that you know in the profession. I have some friends who I'm seeing them. They're trying to teach a virtual voice studio. They're using, you know, the technology that we're
mhm.
using right now for this interview to teach voice lessons and try to keep some revenue coming. So thankfully, people are being creative with technology to try to keep some momentum moving forward.
Yeah, I think people are trying to use it as best they can. I love that a lot of theaters are putting stuff out there for people to watch, streaming free, uh, you know, operas or shows that had been taped for special events in the past, or, you know, whatever. And then there are a lot of theaters that are putting virtual, like, dance and acting and classes out there for people to still do, and that's wonderful. And I think people have tried to do some, you know, like the Stephen Sondheim 90th birthday special they put together. They just had people tape a song from it, and then they put it out there for us all to watch. I mean, it's great what they're trying and how they're keeping things going as best they can. Um, but of course, that can only take us so far, because live theater is meant to be live in front of an audience. That's the idea behind it. And ultimately, you know, the technology can only take us so far for that real experience.
Did they have to subject us again though to cats? Couldn't they have kept that one just hidden away?
Yeah, the whole Andrew, that's
I,
funny. The whole Andrew Lloyd Webber thing, and that was one of the ones they just had to put in there.
of the arsenal that is from that man's catalog, that one is one that just show us the 7-minute clip of somebody singing memories and then don't play the rest of the show.
I'm with you. I have never understood it. I don't know. and it's a taste thing, I guess. It's just never been my thing. I was really thrilled that they did rebroadcast the 25th anniversary version of Phantom, because that's my favorite.
Yes.
I love that
So
version.
when I auditioned at Millikan University when I was a senior in high school, the girl who was auditioned right before me and who I spent most of my time was Sierra Bogus, who is
Sierra?
Christine. And that, yeah, yeah. So she's a Millikan grad. I actually went on 2 visits with her at the same time and got to. I'm not going to say we're
Wow.
close, but it's just interesting to see the trajectory of her career compared to the trajectory of my own. So it was just, it's just, you just never know who you're going to come across.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I loved her in that role. I thought she was fantastic. So, yeah.
It was funny to sit in the hallway while she was auditioning, and you can hear through the walls. And the 2 people, the one girl who, poor girl, was a soprano that was right next to me. We just kind of looked at each other and we're like, "Yep, we're not in the same category as this one." It's you can just tell the difference sometimes, even when you're 18, 19 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
And though you have there's some alumni of Muscatine's program who are performing professionally. I know Ben Rivera has been to some touring casts. He was in the live Fox production of Rent. Who are some other alums that maybe our local Muscatine area people might not realize are out there performing?
Well, Ben is actually in Moulin Rouge right now, and I just
Okay.
went and saw. Yeah, I just went and saw the show in December. I was in New York and saw him and got to go backstage, which was a lot of fun. So he's sitting around right now waiting for that to start back up. Um, so that's exciting. Bryn Sweary, who's a graduate, she works at Spotlight Theater, which is out on Staten Island in New York. She teaches classes there and performs and is doing a lot of stuff. And she also is, just on hold right now, waiting for stuff to get started again. Let's see who else. Jake, a lot of people would remember Jake Vanderlinden, and he and his wife, and I'm not sure what's going on for them now either, because they've started their own, like, a theater camp and youth theater. I can't remember what the name of it is at the moment. I should have looked that up so I would remember. Anyway, so they've got that going, and I'm sure right now they're probably still just trying to do virtual classes and whatnot with their kids, but they're trying to have a program that would be where they do, kids come in and they are doing acting classes, but it leads up to doing a show and things like that. So that's kind of a neat thing. His wife's also an actress. Who else is out there right now working? Those are the top 3 that I can think of specifically who are alums that I know where they are. Zach Minder, I'm not sure what he's doing right now, because he was working in, like, where he was doing Renaissance fairs and performing in those, which are really popular. And I'm sure that he's still doing that. I just don't know where he is right now.
I think that's one of those things that you don't realize how many different avenues there are to keep performing. And if you're willing to, make some sacrifices, move to some more densely populated areas, even places like Minneapolis, Omaha, Kansas City, there's some fine opportunities to be a professional, like the Chanhassen Playhouse up in Minneapolis, which is a fantastic thing if you can get in there, and they do all sorts of different shows. And just even in our own backyard, Circa 21 is such a fantastic place to go and catch some live theater. I took my 2 oldest children and my wife went to see Newsies there last year, and it was just to see a kid see live theater for the first time and just watch their eyes. It's just such a rewarding experience.
Yeah, there is a lot of opportunities just here between cities, and it's great to watch a kid see their first show. That is a great thing. And yeah, like you say, there's so many metropolitan areas with really great theater. Almost any larger city now has good theater. Even Des Moines, Minneapolis, Chicago, obviously, Seattle, Portland, and then in Florida, there's a lot of that in Florida. There's just so many places you can be now and see good live theater or be involved in it. And I think another side of this that people forget is outside of just actors and performers on stage, there's all the tech. There's all the sound, lighting, the people who design sets, costumes, all those people right now too, waiting and not able to get a lot of work. But that's a whole nother avenue of theater that's wonderful.
Choreographers, who are sometimes working 3, 4, 5 shows at a time. I mean, it's really I didn't realize how many people it took to put on a production as an actor until I went onto the other side of the stage and helped produce and coach and direct. I got to do that for the first time in college, and it's an eye-opening thing. It's almost like when you're a player and then you become a coach, you don't realize, oh man, I'm not just worrying about my assignment. I got to know the whole defense now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It takes as many people backstage as it takes on stage to get a show happening.
Well,
easily.
That's going to take us into our rapid fire trivia question segment of the show. Which is I call in the Kraushairs, which I think is a way to put you on the spot. So,
okay.
Rene, I think one of the reasons we get along so well is because we both are avid theater, but we're also avid football fans, and you hail from the fine state of Oregon. So I'm going to ask you this trivia question here. Now I know it's not your Ducks, it's Oregon State Beavers, but who has more NFL touchdowns, Chad Johnson and combined with TJ Houshmandzadeh, or your Hofstra alums, Wayne Krebet and Marcus Colston? Who has more touchdowns between those two universities? Your Hofstra, Marcus Colston, and Wayne Krebet, or Chad Johnson and TJ Houshmandzadeh?
Oh, I think I'm going to go with Chad, and I'm going to go with the Beaver Boys.
You would be incorrect. The Hofstra football alums, they have 113 total touchdowns, 72 for Marcus Colston, and I think it was like 41 for Wayne Krebet for 113 and 111 for TJ Houshmandzadeh and Chad Johnson. Yeah, pretty remarkable. That Colston was in that New Orleans Saints offense with Drew Brees, so he got a lot of touchdowns.
I should have thought of that. Well, and it's sad too because my fabulous Hofstra pride doesn't have a football team anymore. It's a little crushing.
And they have several notable NFL alums between the offensive line. I'm trying to remember his name. But anyway, yeah, I was looking it up this week, and it's just I was shocked. I kind of just did that exercise to see if it was close, and not only was it close, but Hofstra took the lead in that regard.
Yeah,
so that was question one in the Kraushairs. Okay, so the next one, the rapid fire here. What's one musical that people may not have heard of that they need to go out and listen to the soundtrack right now?
Oh, may not have heard of? Hadestown. I love it. Hadestown.
I knew you were. I was hoping you'd say that. I was just listening to it last night. What a performance! If you want to, people ask me why I get so excited sometimes listening to music. Listening to the gentleman who plays Orpheus on that soundtrack is like watching a guy do a 720 dunk. He can do things vocally that I have never heard someone do on stage before.
Yes, he's so good. Okay, so I saw Hadestown in December when I was in New York as well. I keep calling it Hadestown. It's really Hadestown, but I saw it, and it's you see it when you can. It's the music, the whole story. I loved it.
I think that as a music historian and someone who studied it, just the mythological story of Orpheus and Eurydice it's a meaningful story. I think for anyone who who loves music, and so it's a very unique story.
Yes. And they tell it so well, and they don't fudge it. They tell it exactly how it is. So you have to live with it. It's great.
And they hook you right at the very beginning with that kind of dirty New Orleans jazz trombone in that first song, and it's got such a soulful sound to it. It's just and that's why those people are doing what they're doing, composing those scores, and I'm talking about it from my basement, Muscatine, Iowa.
Right. Yeah.
All right, and final question. You can only listen to one musical soundtrack for the rest of your life. What do you pick?
Oh,
that's like asking you to pick your favorite kid. I realize that. But.
These days, with the mood I'm in, I might pick Catch Me If You Can, believe it or not.
That's a great one.
Yeah, I think it's just because that show has a lot of just great sort of jazz, but it also has some traditional musical theater. So it has a nice mix.
Yeah, and I think too is that's one of those shows that we all can relate so well to because we saw the movie first. It's such a mainstream story that when you see that, and that one has a kind of a special place in my heart too because it was really one of the first musicals I helped produce start to finish. You gave me that opportunity, and so that was you just listen to those songs and you hear some of those students singing them instead of the people on the recording.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that's a hard question for me because I would really rather have a mix of many. And my mood changes all the time, right? But at the moment, if I had to do that, I'd probably grab that and take it with me.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with us tonight. And, the fall, hopefully, we just recently, we're recording this and it's going to air maybe even a few weeks later. But we know that the governor in Iowa is opening up, maybe some summer athletics. So that's hopefully a hopeful sign that once we get to the fall season, we'll have that fall drama season as well. So you can do your fall play and hopefully get back to make a theater pun, maybe next to normal a little bit here, but it's
another good one.
It'll be that's a show you can never do at the high school level, though. Unfortunately, it's a little too intense.
I wouldn't do it. There's been a couple high schools that have, but Mrs. Mauck doesn't think the high school age students are ready to play those depths of character. I don't think you're ready to delve there. So
I'm 38 and I'd be nervous I'm 38 and I'd be nervous to play the father in that show because I'm not sure I'm emotionally prepared for that.
Right, exactly. But yes, I'm counting on us being back in the fall. I'm planning for it. I'm reading scripts. I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be ready with a couple different options based on if we have any limitations they request of us. Then I'm going to have like a smaller cast show ready and a larger cast show ready. So I'll be ready. Hopefully we'll be there.
It could give you a real opportunity to be creative and maybe stage something in a way that nobody's ever done it before, to try and obey some social distancing but still give a really creative visual.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that the other night. I'm like, I'll have some flexible options, and I'll maybe there's ways we could do things if you pick the right script that you could really get away with that and it wouldn't be too odd. Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? We just got to be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know. Maybe you'll do something with just a Zoom broadcast of of a musical.
Well, one option that's out there is if it did come down to the situation being an issue of not being able to have a large audience, you can do live streams, and the rights holders are being a little more flexible about giving live streaming licensures out now due to this. So that, that is actually a consideration.
We adapted tonight to get this this interview recorded, and the thing I love about my show is I get to talk to the people I really like to talk to, and you and I have always had good conversations. We've been fortunate to put a couple of these on recording. And when I had my radio show, you came on, and that was still one of my favorite interviews. Now, one last thing I want to mention. I was fortunate in that career to interview Alan Alda, who talked about empathy and communication. And I think in this time of social distancing, we're forcing ourselves to become a little bit better at communicating and listening. And we're condensed with our immediate families, and we're separated from the people that sometimes we would maybe be closest to because we're at work with them. I really find that in my profession that some of the training I've learned as a theater actor and as a musical theater actor, it really translates to my professional world in sales and service. And you could probably attest to that, and Alan Alda was attesting to that those listening skills that you have to learn as an actor are really beneficial in all relationships in your life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always say theater is just a really well-rounded art form. You are learning listening, and empathy is important. There's just so much that's in a show, right? There's psychology, there's history, there's sociology, there's all these elements to study, and then you have to use all those skills of listening and talking clearly, and all those things come in handy in just real life.
Could not
And I
agree
think you're
more, and
right,
that's
that
a great way.
yeah. The empathy thing is a big issue, learning to be, because if you don't understand empathy, it's hard to act. You have to be able to get into the shoes of this other human that you're playing, and you can't judge them. You have to just be them. And that's a great thing that kids learn through playing a character. So, and that's maybe we'll be better at that coming out of this time.
Yeah, I know that I went through a run there where I was always cast as this angry drunk person, usually in a show, and I learned that I can't judge that person. I have to just realize that they're either supposed to be funny or they're supposed to be awful. That doesn't mean that I'm necessarily funny and I'm necessarily awful, and I think that sometimes can be a challenge.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I've had to say that to actors, to my high school kids so many times when they're like, "Oh, I hate saying this line. It's so terrible." It's like, no, you can't judge the line. You have to be in the mind of that human, where they're at. What makes them say that line? Is that? What is that, right? That's acting.
Yeah, and that's
So,
sometimes management too. I mean, that's sometimes how you relate to your coworkers is, okay, maybe they're
right.
saying that because they're really uncomfortable about something. They're not trying to be mean, they're not trying to be a jerk about it. They're just whatever they're in that moment, that's what needs to come out of them. So I think that's one of those life skills that
Yes.
you learn as a theater kid. Well,
Yeah.
Rene, you and I can
Yeah,
honestly do a 2 hour
we go
interview.
on and on about it.
And maybe there's a time where we should do that. We could do a podcast where we could talk forever and we could talk for hours and break down the psychology of Pat Finn and whatever. But we could go really inside baseball and have a good time. But again, thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight. And I really appreciate you as a member of our community and bringing the arts to life in Muscatine.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, this has been another episode of TBD with Coach Kraushaar, brought to you by Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning here in Muscatine. Again, go to chamberlainheatingandair.net and check out all of their HVAC items as well as their outdoor kitchen items. And again, I'm looking forward to future explorations with my pellet grill from Green Mountain Girls from Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning. So thank you so much for watching tonight. Whether you're watching it on Discover Muscatine's Facebook page, YouTube channel, on your smartphone or TV, we really appreciate Discover Muscatine for bringing us this content and allowing me to do my show. Again, thanks again for tuning in to TBD with Coach Kraushaar. And again, huge thank you to Rene Mauck, the Director of Theater Arts at Muscatine High School. Good night, everyone.